Hello, my friends. Welcome, welcome. We are going to continue the discussion on book launches today. And in my last video, we talked about, well, what is a book launch? And essentially, we just discussed that it is a period of time before and after publication that you are talking about your book and you are promoting your book and you are trying to get, more concentrated attention about your book. So that is a book launch, and there are kind of two schools of thought on how you can go about it. And in my last video, we talked about what is a soft launch, soft versus hard. Today, we're going to really dive into the hard launch, but a soft launch is just where you don't have a specific publication date. You're not really announcing this. You're not building the hype beforehand, and you're going to concentrate most of your marketing and promotional efforts after your publication. So in sharp contrast, like soft and hard are exact opposites here. So when you choose to do a hard book launch, what you are saying is that you have a very specific date on which you are going to launch your book. And then you just work like a crazy person to build as much hype before that date. So this is just like you're putting in all of the effort to really gain the momentum and shoot your sales sky high on day one, on launch date. So within a hard launch, the kind of prerequisites, if you will, are the ability to commit to that date. Now, keep in mind that there are things you cannot control. Like perhaps a global pandemic that shuts down schools and businesses and stuff like that, okay? Besides that, there's smaller things you can't control. Hey, what if the publisher that maybe you're working with an indie publisher or something, and things don't go as planned. They give you the wrong files or whatever. There are so many different things that you cannot control yourself. Even if you're just totally doing it yourself, you have formatted and done the cover and everything yourself. You're not relying on anyone. You still have to upload it to places like Amazon and perhaps elsewhere, depending on if you're doing, multiple platforms. But the point is, technology is what it is. Things happen. So within this hyped up plan, to lead up to a particular date, you need to count for contingencies. How can you plan around any type of tech issues? How can you plan around timing and money and all the resources that go into it that may need to fluctuate and shift? Do you have any budget wiggle room? Do you have any time wiggle room built in there? Or are you just gunning it for the hills and throwing a Hail Mary? I think that's a sports term, by the way. But I think what I really mean is just kind of jumping and hoping that you land where you want to land. So in order to avoid any crashing and burning, if you will, a detailed marketing plan is a prerequisite. It's going to need to start a couple months in advance of your launch date. And launch date really is like the publication date here. So this is a good fit for someone who has maybe a strong marketing background, or they have a very strong following already. You can absolutely nail this without having those two skills in your back pocket, or those two benefits, pros, if you will. But if you're a newbie, this could be extremely stressful. So if you thrive under pressure, and this is something like this book means a lot to you, and you are willing to put in as much muscle as you can and energy and money because this is what you want, then do it, okay? This is okay. You just have to understand what you're getting yourself into. So it will increase the pressure of performance, and perhaps you perform well under pressure, and this is how you motivate yourself to keep pushing towards the end goal, keep pushing towards that finish line. When a hard launch is planned well, and you have a network of support behind you, and you're building up your audience, and you're building this hype, you can really nail this thing out of the park. Another sports reference there. All right. we're really sports heavy in this video today. But you can really hit that home run, because when you are able to build that hype, what is more likely to happen, again, no guarantees, but that's where you can hit bestseller status. When you start talking about it and people are like, ooh, this is happening. I can't wait till our book is published in 2 days. Like, I'm totally prepared to buy this thing. I'm totally prepared to support you because I know about it. You've hyped it up. I can't wait to read it. Or you've given me some tidbits and samples and I'm just like, okay, when can I get this book? Then you are more likely in this context to hit bestseller lists than you are if you don't hype it up. So if that's something that means something to you, if you really do want to say like, hey, I hit #1 on Amazon, then this is really the way to help make that happen. If you are able to push this hard launch and it succeeds and you're building up this hype, besides that bestseller status, you're reaching more readers quickly, which should theoretically translate into more sales right away. Now, again, that takes tons of planning and work and list building and all of that jazz, but it can happen. And if you build up so high that you're getting the bulk of your sales on day one, then set your expectations for sales to start slowly dwindling. They're not necessarily going to stay the same or keep going higher and higher and higher, but just be aware that even if your hard launch plan includes robust marketing efforts after it publishes, you're still going to most likely see a dwindle in your sales versus a soft launch, which may continue to increase or level off and stay steady. So just keep your expectations leveled where you won't be disappointed when things go as they should be expected to go in reality. So again, if you're okay with the pressure and the stress and relying on external things that you can't control, disaster may strike and that's okay. If you're able to pivot and shift and stay on target, then a hard launch for your book may bring you more success to hit the list, to hit sales, to reach more people, to get your message out there and just hype this thing up. Now, unlike a soft launch where you're kind of front loading or where you're back loading a lot of your marketing efforts, with a soft launch, you don't do a lot of promoting and marketing and talking about it as much up front because there's no particular date. Maybe there's you can guarantee like a week out. So you're maybe going to try to hype it up for a week versus 2 months. With a hard launch, you're going to try to hype it up as much as possible in the beginning. So you're really front loading a lot of your efforts. You may decide that some of your efforts need to kind of tail off or trail off, if you will, settle down a bit because you don't necessarily want to burn your audience out. You're going to have to figure out what's too much for them. That's a little bit of a subjective calculation, if you will, but in your lead up to your publication date, if you were posting every day or 4 times a day or whatever, you may want to back off a little bit after the first couple days following your launch, just to give them a little bit of a breather. If I'm following you and all you've been doing is talking nonstop 24 hours around the clock about this book, I'm going to understand because you are excited and you just launched it or you will be launching it in a couple days. But if it's like a week or so later, I'm going to start getting a little like, okay, are we done yet? Can we talk about something else? So you may shift into some more softer promotional tactics. You may shift into, hey, my book is published, but I want to talk to you about some of these other resources. Or, these are some interviews that I'm doing. Come check it out. And it's not necessarily directly about your book, but it's about some value that your book connects with and gives to your readers and your audience. So you're still marketing and you're still launching in the book launch parameters of before and after your actual publication date, but you're tapering off. On the other hand, with a soft launch, you'd be kind of building up and up and up. You want to continue building publication date, and then you're kind of hitting it hard for a while. Did you hear that I launched my book last week? You're talking about it for a while. You haven't burned your list out. You haven't burned your readers out or your followers out, meaning they haven't seen the 47,000 posts you did before publication. There was no 47,000 posts. Now you're talking to them more and more. So it's a little bit of a flip-flop there. The pressure's on, you mount it up, you really build it up in a hard launch, and then you taper off. So again, these two, soft and hard, are different feels for different people based upon your individual style, preferences, goals for your book, but also maybe your readers as well. Consider your audience, consider your following. What's going to benefit you the most? Do you have a following that's already engaged with you on many other things or similar things to your book? Great. Maybe a hard launch is going to work well for you because you have people listening to you already. Maybe a soft launch would be better for someone who doesn't have as big of a following. But once you have your book published, you can say, hey, let me just start talking to people. I got something to talk about now. So it's just a little bit of a, what do you prefer? Who are you talking to? And about what type of calculation? But keep in mind, there are different feels for these launches, these two different styles, and it's not a one size fits all. It's not a guarantee that results will be what they will be with either one. So it's all about you and what you put into it. And even if you do a hybrid where you're like, I'm just going to talk about it for a week before and a week after, and that's it, that's okay. If that's what you plan and you're strategic and mindful about it and thoughtful, then you did your best and you should be proud of yourself. And that is all that matters. Okay. So we're going to continue talking about book marketing because that's the theme of the month. So come back for my next video where we're talking about book tours. Is that still a thing? We shall see.